Please welcome Angela Mack.
Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Pretty good? Okay, wonderful. Well, in my day, the term was all you need is love. And I still feel that way because in the tumultuous world that we live in, and it seems to get more and more tumultuous each day, love really is the only thing I think that's going to carry us through. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about 3 types of love. Love for community, love for family and friends, and of course, we have to have love for the Gibbes, because as you know, we have just gone through a couple of rather strenuous years to renovate this building and reopen it to the public in the form that it is now. And we hope that all of you will take the time to enjoy it. I'm actually going to get this off my plate right off the bat because I've been given all these instructions. So today, after the talk, if y'all want to go upstairs and enjoy the museum, of which my talk is going to entice you to do that, you're going to want to do that when we're done, the admission charge will be applied to a membership. So you can do that. And then I believe we are also providing a $5 discount on the memberships as well. So if you're going to join, today's the day to do it. It won't get any cheaper than this. Okay? So do take the time. It won't take very long. And if you run through today, you can come back as a member anytime you choose and enjoy lots of discounts for our programming and our parties and our events and all kinds of things. So the first love is love of community, and that really begins with the person that made this all happen. And that's our benefactor, James Shulbrig Gibbes. We don't know very much about him, except for the fact that he was quite wealthy. He was more than likely a slave owner because he was born in 1815 and lived through the Civil War and through Reconstruction. But he was also very wealthy. He had large holdings in what was known then as the South Carolina Railroad and Gas Company, which then became SCE&G, which then became SCANA. And surprisingly enough, the building right next door to us is the original building for SCE&G. They've now vacated that building and have built offices up on Leeds Avenue. But the fact that the Gibbes is built right next door to that building, I've always found to be very interesting because that building actually predates this one. Sadly, it was not a happy marriage to Mary, his wife. They had no children, and by all accounts, they hated each other. Interestingly, these 2 images, his is very elaborately decorated and hers is very plain. These are 2 miniature portraits. They're no bigger than this, and you'll see them if you go upstairs. But she would have worn his portrait, and he would have worn her portrait. And this is how people kept their significant others, their loved ones, close at hand well before photography even existed. These are both painted on porcelain, so they're baked on porcelain, and they're quite beautiful images. It's lovely to see them all blown up because you can see all the details. He left $100,000 to the city of Charleston. In today's money, that's about $3 million. And this was in 1885 when he died. Now think about Charleston in 1885. This place was a mess. In fact, where we're standing right now was a great big hole in the ground from the Civil War because everything on this block was decimated. I mean, decimated. The fire of 1861 and then the Civil War, nothing. So he left this money. Now, every relative in the Gibbes family came after it because he gave it to the city of Charleston, and they wanted to claim it. So it took about 10 years for the will to be probated, And then in 1905, the city finally got around to building the Gibbes Museum of Art. And this is the signature that made it all happen on his will. Now, the first plans were a building constructed in sort of in a Beaux-Arts style, very much in the keeping of European museums, where the ground floor was space for artists to work, and then the upstairs were the grand exhibition spaces. And a lot of this revealed itself to us when we were able to find the original blueprints, of which you see here. They were housed over at City Archives. We didn't know they were over there for a very, very long time. We finally found them. It took about a year to relax them because they had been crumpled up and rolled up. And we took them over to County Library, where that's the only place we could find where there were tables big enough so that we could spread them out and start reading them and understand what this building was all about. Because in the subsequent 111 years, a lot of things had changed. A lot of quick fixes had occurred. Additions were put on, like the one we're in right now. Ceilings were dropped. The building, the beauty of the building itself was just completely had disappeared. And here it gives you an idea of what this is sort of a bird's eye view of the floor plan of the two floors. The first floor, the corridor that you just walked down, and then upstairs, the main exhibition hall. In fact, the brick wall that you see over here is the back of the original 1905 building. And we thought it was important to expose that so that people could actually see what the original building looked like. And this is how it started. I love this picture. Actually, I don't really love this picture. Why do you think I don't love this picture? First of all, sorry, it's all white males. And that's really the point. I mean, this was, because it was a public building, the Masons had control over building the building because the Masonic groups are very strong, or were very strong in Charleston particularly, and across the country for that matter, in creating public buildings. And so I love to show this picture because now almost I would say at least 80% of the Gibbes staff is women. And this is an early picture of the front of the building, which we use sort of as a model to go back to for the institution itself. And then in the spaces down the corridor, we had these great rooms where artists could work and classes could take place. Very shortly, and that's why we closed the doors over there, our campers are going to be coming in. So those of you who are sitting in the back, I know that I'm not going to be able to keep your attention because you're going to be watching them in the classrooms because they are just hilarious to watch. This is a picture of Alfred Huddy, who was one of our very first director of the art school that was run out of these spaces on the first floor. And then Bill Halsey teaching a course here at the Gibbes. And of course, Bill Halsey is the artist for whom the Halsey Gallery is named after at the College of Charleston. And then he went over there to teach at the college and actually initiated the fine arts program at the College of Charleston. And this is what the upstairs looked like. Very Victorian, paintings hung from floor to ceiling, and it was a grand space where artists, young artists, could go up and copy the masters, just like you see images of artists doing at the Louvre or at any European institution. This was how artists learned the craft. And this is actually why Gibbes did this. Charleston, I mean, if you can imagine a city where every young person wanted to leave. I mean, there was nothing here. There was no future. There was nothing. And his desire was to figure out a way to keep creative people here. And that concept has stayed with us ever since. We want to make creative people better, help them advance their careers, because my job as a director of this institution is to create the next Jasper Johns. That's my job. That's my goal all the time. And I need you guys to do that for me, okay? This is actually an interesting image because, and I'll talk a little more about this later, in 1936, the Gibbes was the location of the first public exhibition of Solomon Guggenheim's collection. Now, Guggenheim was the founder of the Guggenheim Museum in New York, the wonderful building that was built by Frank Lloyd Wright, that's right on Fifth Avenue. And in fact, the Gibbes showed his work here initially. It was all abstract art, fabulous pieces, Picasso, Chagall, Seurat, Leger, Kandinsky, fantastic works of art. And we had 150 of them in this building because Guggenheim, like a lot of industrialists at the turn of the 20th century, had purchased plantations in this region for hunting preserves. But Guggenheim became really involved with the city as well, and he was a big supporter of the Gibbes because of his interest in the arts. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later because we're going to have a recreation, not a recreation, but a celebration of this show coming up in October. So now a discussion about family and friends, love of family and friends. And the first couple I have for you to look at is traditional love in Charleston. Mr. and Mrs. Elliott were first cousins. I won't talk about their children, but that was kind of the way things were done in the plantation world. You know, you kind of wanted to stay, keep things in the family, and this is about as close as you can get. Unless you're talking about the pharaohs, maybe. But these great portraits are also upstairs. It's actually their wedding picture. She is in her beautiful white silks, and he's looking as dapper as he possibly can. But that, you know, that kind of sums it all up in the 18th century. But also you had true affection and love. And this couple, again in miniature portrait, the Pinckneys were really lovers. And Thomas particularly wanted his wife's portrait numerous times. He actually had Edward Malbone, who did these two portraits, paint her at least 3 or 4 times. And it's quite a lovely love story. This actually was their courting pictures in terms of she wanting to have an image of him and vice versa. And so they are, you know, sort of our Kate Middleton and Prince William of Charleston. And then, of course, there's Illicit Love. Can you read the inscription? I'll read it to you. To the bosom of Sarah be this image confined, an emblem of love and esteem, bestowed by a friend desirous to find a place in that bosom unseen. Clearly, this was a portrait for his mistress. And, of course, in the back, a lovely lock of hair from his head, so that she would always have a memento of the love that he had for her. It's a great miniature by Bonatho, although he does look like a bit of a jerk, don't you think? Then there's Love for Mother. This is a great portrait of Charles Izard Manigault just before he set sail for about 2 or 3 years to China and Japan and the Far East. Because think about it, in the early 19th century, again, this is pre-photography, pre-Instagram, pre-Twitter, pre-Snapchat, pre-Facebook, pre-everything. The only way you could have a likeness of someone and keep it close to you is by having a painting done or a miniature done. It's the only way. Very few mirrors. Think about that for a moment. It was hard to even see your own image sometimes. So having a portrait like this done for his mother before he went on this fantastic journey that took him away for years was extremely important. And she demanded it before she left. She said, I may not see you again. I want a portrait. So in fact, he had himself painted on a ship, and in the background you see the mast of the ship because he's getting ready to go off in stormy waters. Again, love of mother, but this time by the artist himself. This is a beautiful portrait by Childe Hassam, the great American Impressionist artist. And it's a picture of his mother. It's entitled April. It's actually the month of his birth date. And because she's in a maternity gown. So he's actually painted her when she was pregnant with him. And we discovered all of this because we started doing, or the folks up at the MFA in Boston started doing some investigating of the costume itself. It's a rather unusual costume. Of course, it's influenced by Japanese costumes, but there was nothing like it that we could find in America at the time until they determined that it was a pregnancy gown, and he's captured her pregnant with him. Then this great piece by Leo Twiggs called Sarah Remembered. It's a wonderful imagined image by Leo Twiggs, an African-American artist, of his great-grandmother who was born in slavery. And she was emancipated at the age of 7. Her mother died in childbirth. She was raised by other women on the plantation. And in Twiggs' mind, she was truly a hero because she survived, and survived through emancipation. He combines the portrait, and it's done in sort of a silhouette fashion because he had no idea what she looked like. This is just a conjuring in his mind. He's combined it with a small reliquary at the bottom, and this is actually a little insert in the framed piece that includes all kinds of little things that a young girl might have: a ball, a piece of twine, things that she might have played with when she was a child. And this is how he remembers her and the spirit of her in his mind, because she was the first free person in his family. Of course, Jonathan Green, and here again we have a love for an aunt, his Aunt Corinne, for which the painting is named. And he describes her as the most giving person I have ever met in my life. And with this beautifully bold composition, he remembers her as a strong, proud woman that really helped to keep the family together. I'm sure many of you know Jonathan's story, growing up in Gardens Corners, an artist leaving, going to the Art Institute in Chicago to get his training, and now he's finally come back to Charleston, and the most recent major production that he's done, of course, is the costume design for Porgy and Bess that occurred during Spoleto. And then this great work by John Westmark, a young artist whose work we just purchased not too long ago, and he is a winner of our Society 1858 Contemporary Southern Art Prize. He's actually created this piece because of the love of his 2 daughters, because he desires these young women to grow up as strong, independent women. His painting explores the human figure through the innovative use of text and paper sewing patterns collaged on canvas. His paintings depict stoic martyrs as well as rebels and warriors fighting for social change. If you look closely, I don't know if you can actually see it, but if you go upstairs and see the work of art, you will see these components. On the surface of the painting are embedded little pieces of patterns that are used to create dresses. I'm sure many of you have seen the pattern books. He uses these pattern books to construct the figures that you see there. And then within the patterns, or within the dresses themselves, you'll actually see little pins like you use to hold the patterns together. And the pins all have red heads to sort of conjure up blood and the fight that women have today in terms of society. And then this last piece, which I think is probably the most touching of all in the shows that we have upstairs, by Lonnie Holly. How many of you had a chance to see the Lonnie Holly exhibition at the Halsey not too long ago? Well, this work was in that show, and in fact, we were able to purchase it because of a gift by an individual that wanted it to stay in Charleston, and I will tell you why. Lonnie Holly started working in art because there was a terrible tragedy in his family. 2 of his nieces died in a house fire. And because the family was so poor, he didn't have the funds to provide them with headstones. So he started carving in stone so that he could create the headstones himself. And that was the launch of his artistic career. He continued to work in stone until he started to move into more assemblages or constructions. And this is one of his assemblages. Before the Emanuel AME tragedy, he visited Charleston, and like many African Americans, Emanuel AME is a pilgrimage for people. He went there specifically to collect found objects so that he could create a work of art that reminded him of that place. This was approximately a year before the tragedy. He constructed it, and then, of course, the tragedy occurred. And as a result, the piece now has just taken on a whole new meaning, primarily because of the objects that he found, particularly the light stand, sort of the lamp stand, and the fact that the light is out. So we are thrilled to have it in the collection. It really does speak to multiple layers of love, not only personal love, but love that has now sort of rippled through the city because of the reaction of the family members who lost loved ones in the tragedy. And we're just excited to have it in the show that we have upstairs that is specific to commemorating the Emanuel AME tragedy last year. And finally, we have love for the Gibbes. And, of course. And we start with the staff. And many of them you've already met, and they're standing in the back and have helped with this morning's event. This was actually a photograph that we took just as construction was starting here in the fall of 2014. And I will tell you, if you ever have the idea to redo a building of this size, take your house, all right? Take your house, multiply it by 1,000, and you've got the job. I mean, that's it. Never again. But we survived. And this is how it started to look. In fact, I think this is actually this room. The demolition was unbelievable. I mean, they took everything back to beyond the studs. I mean, if it's possible to go beyond the studs, they went beyond the studs. These are images of upstairs in the rotunda. And this, of course, began after we had taken everything out of the building, including 10,000 works of art and objects in our archives. All of these things were stored in other locations, including the High Museum in Atlanta. They were very kind to take on our collection and keep it there for almost 2.5 years. The Charleston Museum was incredibly helpful. The State Museum in Columbia was also very helpful because we had to find secure places for these objects while this was all going on. More demolition, more construction. This is upstairs in the main spaces. And then finally, building started again. So once they got it all torn out, then slowly but surely objects started coming back in, and particularly the second stairwell that's in the front that was demolished in the 1970s for our handicap door. There were 2 staircases in the front originally, because in a Beaux-Arts building, everything is symmetrical. Everything on the right is on the left and vice versa. And so we wanted to take the 05 building back to its original look and beauty. So we had to rebuild this entire staircase. Much of the craftsmanship that went into it is lost today, particularly the wrought iron work that needed to be done. So, in fact, the staircase was only finished about 2 days ago. So, but we had other ways to get upstairs. We're very glad to have it all done. We had lots of city officials involved because the city is still an owner of this building, along with the nonprofit, the Carolina Art Association. So Mayor Riley was here on a fairly regular basis to see how construction was going on. And then this is our architect, Joe Schmidt, who truly is the brains behind putting all the puzzle pieces back together again. He also did the work on City Hall as well as Dock Street Theater, so he's incredibly well-versed in renovations of historic buildings, of which the Gibbes is one. And working together with him was truly, truly a wonderful pleasure. And I will honestly say that I think I love him. More construction up into the dome, where we created this temporary staircase so that the construction people could get up there more easily. And then this is what it looks like inside the dome. All you see in the Rotunda building is the Tiffany glass, and on the outside you see copper. But between the copper and the Tiffany glass is this elaborate workmanship to keep everything together and not flying apart. And then a few more. Here is actually the hallway that you just walked down before the finished product, and then the new addition that we put on the south side of the building to expand our storage area. Much of the work is work that you can't even see. Underground, behind walls, humidity and air control systems, security systems, sound systems, things that are second nature to us now, but take a lot of energy to put into a building. And then this is the back before the garden was finished. And when after this whole section in the back was enclosed by glass. And then the finished product, the front door coming up as y'all did today. The rotunda itself as it looks today, completely taken back to the way it looked originally with the beautiful Georgia white oak exposed in all the trim work in the space. This is a view out of the front windows overlooking Meeting Street and the beautiful porcelain tile floor that is finally exposed on the ground floor as well as in the rotunda. For as long as I've been here, and I came here in 1981, these floors were covered by sad gray and green carpet. And to have it exposed was just such a revelation. And slowly but surely, we're working on it to restore it as much as we possibly can. And there are two friends again, the Elliots. This is our main gallery as you walk in and begin to enjoy the various exhibitions that we have upstairs. Some additional views of the furniture that we have on display from the John Rivers collection, as well as some of our grand portraits. This is going further into the spaces upstairs in our 20th century gallery spaces with our American Impressionist pieces, as well as our regional American regionalist works. Some additional furniture and another terrific couple in our collection, the Gilmores. Robert Gilmore was a very strong collector, and most of his collection now is at the Baltimore Museum in Baltimore, Maryland, and his beautiful wife, Sarah Ladson, who was a Charlestonian. And then into our modern and contemporary gallery that features the work of Mary Jackson and her amazing baskets, of which we have on display the largest basket that she's ever produced. It took her 3 years to create it. On the third floor are exhibitions, The Things We Carry and the Porgy and Bess exhibition. This show includes works by all of the artists who are either finalists or winners of our Society 1858 prize. and focuses on commemorating the Emanuel AME tragedy. And then 2 of Jonathan Green's costume designs for the Porgy and Bess opera that was during Spoleto, and then just beyond our open storage area, because we feel it's very important for people to be able to see us working behind the scenes. So we've created a whole space where you can actually watch us in the storage areas and in our work areas, just like lab rats, I guess, doing the work that has to be done to care for objects that are not on display or preparing objects for display. Because even though we have about 600 pieces that are on view, we have 10,000 objects in the collection. And we rotate the second floor on a regular basis. The third floor changes about every 3 months or so. So altogether, we have 5 galleries that will rotate consistently, and then a group of galleries that will rotate less frequently. The garden with the fountain on. Right now, unfortunately, it's shut off because we're doing some final repairs on it. Another great view of the garden finished from the back. And opening day, which occurred on May 28th. It was a terrific day. We had both mayors here, Mayor Tecklenburg and Mayor Riley, to help cut the ribbon. A terrific performance by Ann Caldwell, who sang that morning. And then we spent the rest of the week partying because we were too exhausted to do anything else. Great luncheon in the back garden. Family reunions. This is the entire Mary Jackson family in front of her fantastic basket. They came to the opening events, and then she stayed on to do some workshops in our studio on the first floor. It was a homecoming for a lot of people because many of our members had not had a chance to be in the building for 2 years. So lots of love and kisses and happiness that we were back here and with our artwork. And here's an image of Mary doing one of her workshops. You'll see a cameo appearance of Mayor Tecklenburg over here in the corner watching. But the studios are very active spaces, and as we move into our season, beginning in September, we will have artist in residence on a regular basis. We have a great partnership with the College of Charleston, where their artist in residence will be working here and teaching there. So it's a wonderful opportunity for people to see artists working as well as the finished product. And then our camp. Children are in and out all the time. I'm happy to say that this year all of our camp sessions sold out, so now we're looking at extending sessions for next year. And they have a lot of fun. Our mascot that the kids absolutely love. Our Society 1858 Young Associates group, they have a great time. They're about 200 strong and give the best parties in Charleston, I will tell you that. And I should know. Our Women's Council that does great programming for us every year, particularly their Art of Design lecture that they do. And this year we had Andrew Prince, who designed all of the jewelry for Downton Abbey. So we got a chance to wear all of the tiaras. I'm wearing the one that Maggie Smith had on. Of course. Our street party that is just getting bigger and bigger every year. This year, the theme was the Year of the Gibbes. It was a Chinese theme, and we had 27 chefs to have Mike Latta and Sean Brock and all of the greats in Charleston on Meeting Street at the same time. The best part of the party is when they all come just before it starts, and it's like a homecoming. They all love each other so much and enjoy the opportunity to spend time with each other and see what the other is doing. It was really, really a great event. And then all of us dressed up at the end. The staff dressed in their finery for our gala and enjoying the reopening of the institution. So very quickly, what you have in store in the future, as I mentioned early on, the Guggenheim exhibition, we've actually partnered with the Guggenheim Museum of Art to celebrate the 1936 exhibition, because this year is the 80th anniversary of that exhibition. So in October, 40 of the pieces that were shown in 1936 from the Guggenheim collection will be coming back to the Gibbes for an exhibition. And you can see the marvelous artists that will be in the show. This piece is by Marc Chagall, the center is by Pablo Picasso, and the third on the far end is by Vasily Kandinsky. These are incredible works of art. If you don't see this show, shame on you. Because otherwise, you would have to go to New York, you would have to get a hotel room, you'd have to buy an airplane ticket, you would have to at least go see one show. It costs a fortune. This is coming to you. So come and see it. It will be a terrific event, and you'll enjoy it. Another show that we're doing is a Hudson River exhibition with the Higdon collection. Lee and Ann Higdon, I don't know if you remember Lee Higdon, but he's a former president of the College of Charleston. They've amassed a fabulous collection of Hudson River School landscapes, and this is one of them, and that will be coming in December. We're also going to be doing an exhibition of Jacob Lawrence's work that is coming in the spring. And then Patrick Dougherty is going to be doing one of his fantastic sapling constructions in the building. If you go upstairs, there is an area in the back where you can be on the second floor, or be on the third floor, but look down on the second floor. So he's creating a piece that's going to start on the second floor and then go up into the third floor. So it's going to be really, really cool. And we're going to need a lot of volunteers for this. Everybody's got to go out and find saplings and then bring them back. And then, to top everything off, we have to have sexual love, right? And this was actually the only image I could find that I could show in public with kids in the other room. Becca and I went through a whole lot of, oh my God. But Jeff Koons is coming to Charleston on November 16th. He's going to be our distinguished lecturer this year. And I'm sure all of you know him from his puppies and his dogs and his what have you. I mean, it's going to be a riot. We're going to have it at the Charleston Music Hall. We've actually moved the event from Memminger to the Music Hall because it seats more people. So you've got to come and hear him. I think it's going to be a fascinating talk. I don't know if any of you saw the show at the Whitney, but it was pretty amazing before the Whitney closed. And I'm sure he'll have some images that will be seriously about love. The end.